Coming up on today's show.
So I think goal setting is extremely important to anyone that wants to achieve any type of success.
You have an acronym that you have to get us launched into organizing, right?
So, when is your deadline to achieve this goal? The A would be to do an analysis of the resources involved to reach your goals. And that's where you're going to look at your environment, your accountability, your support, and everything around you.
Goal setting strategies today on Keeping You Organized. Hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we are going to get down in the trenches. We're going to set some goals and we're going to give you strategies on how to not only set them but to achieve them and be successful through all this. And when I think of the word success, I think of Lisa Montanaro from lisamontanaro.com. Lisa, how are you today?
I'm good. Hi, John.
Well,
nice
listen,
to be here.
It is awesome to talk goal setting with you. I know you teach this a lot in your classes and when you're speaking. And really what I want to accomplish today is some people, think of goal setting as just writing down a sentence. I want to achieve this by this date, and that's their goal, and that's all they get into. But I want to go a little deeper. I want to, for the person who's never set goals before, how do you actually do it? But also give them some strategies, some things they can use to help them cross the finish line. So what do you think about this whole goal setting craze anyway? I know certain times of the year, people are more focused on it than others, like, New Year's, of course. But what about goal setting?
So I think goal setting is extremely important to anyone that wants to achieve any type of success. And depending on who the person is, some people love the idea of setting goals. They live for it, like me. And other people, it scares them a little bit. It seems unmanageable and unattainable. So what I would love to do today is you and I sort of, break this down so it feels like it's something that they can achieve. And it also shouldn't feel like so much work. It should be kind of fun. It should be almost like taking a little course in yourself, because you would assume that the goals you set are for you, but that's something that we could talk about.
Well, we also know we also feel real good when we achieve a goal too. So that's another reason to do them, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the feeling of achieving your goals for most people, for a large portion of the population, it feels great. And also you're a role model to people around you. And then let's think about it like this. They build on each other. So every time you achieve one goal, there's another one that you can look at, maybe taking yourself to the next level. So yeah, it's a great area. And like you said, it tends to be really popular around New Year's resolutions in January. But goals are actually a little different, in my opinion, than New Year's resolutions, because true goals have a process that they follow. Whereas a resolution, usually people just say, here's my New Year's resolution, but they don't do anything with it. Right. So what you and I are doing is we're doing the actual strategy so they can achieve these things.
Well, what's the very first thing? Just say I decide, well, okay, it's time for me to set some goals. What's the first thing I should do?
I think the first thing, before you even get into the process, is figuring out why you want to set this goal. So what's your big why? And it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. I want them to dig deep. And so, let's go with one that a lot of people do, which is, I want to lose weight or get in shape. Okay, why? Oh, because I want to look better. Okay, great. Why do you want to look better? Because it would, help my business. It would help my reputation. It would, help my relationships, or is it about your health? Because I want to lower my cholesterol. I want to live longer. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to be a role model. So there's usually a pretty big why behind something. And if there isn't, then we need to get at why isn't there a big why? And if there isn't, is that enough to propel you forward to achieve this goal? So that's usually where I would start with people. And then I would kind of look at, are they set up to achieve this goal?
Okay.
So I would look at a lot of things in their life to make sure, is this the right time for you to set this goal? Like, is there something else going on? Are you in the middle of a big transition? Is this really the best time to do this? Do you have enough people around you to support you in this goal? So I would look at what are your chances of success in terms of your environment. So first I go internal, why do you want to do this goal? And then externally, are you set up to achieve this goal right now?
Now let's stop there for a second, because let's say you identify that, well, maybe I don't have the support. Is that something you should try to get in place before you commit to something then?
I do think so, John, seriously, because when I see people that don't achieve their goals, Sometimes the setbacks are small ones and, they can overcome them, but sometimes the setbacks are huge. And we saw the writing on the wall before they began. Like, we knew that they weren't going to be set up for success because they weren't in the right relationship, or their boss wasn't going to support them in trying to achieve this type of project or promotion at work that they were reaching for. So yeah, I would ask everyone to look in advance at your external and internal environment and make sure that you're set up for success.
All right. Now, I know you're an organized person. I bet you have an acronym that you have to get us launched into organizing, right?
Doesn't everyone, right?
Well, yes. There's a bunch of them out there, I know.
Okay. Some people are probably familiar with them. They probably heard of something called the SMART formula, and a lot of people feel it's outdated. I think it still works well because it gives you some structure to your goal setting. I tend to change it a tiny bit. I call it START because I want everyone to be able to start their goals. I've actually seen two interesting things, John. People either have a failure to launch, like they set a goal and then they never actually launch it, or a failure to land. They start their goal and the first few weeks they're doing well and then they peter off. So start your goals and then also finish them. Right. So the S is to get a sense of all the projects and goals that you have that you want to start or you want to set. And one tip here is don't set too many at once. So
how many goals should a person have? I mean, is there a good number?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say probably don't work on more than 3 main goals at a time, but it depends how big or how small they are. So if you're doing something major like quitting smoking, and this is a big deal for you and you've tried to do this for years and you haven't been able to set yourself up for success, I would not set 5 other goals at the same time as doing that one. So that might be an example of, depends the size of your goal. If the goals are small, go ahead and set 3 to 5 of them. But if the goals are big, maybe achieve each one at a time and then move on to your next one.
Yeah, that actually brings up a thought. I've never really thought about this before, but I suppose a lot of people sit down at the beginning of the year and say, here are my 4 goals. But you could set one goal now and another one 60 days from now, and it's kind of an ongoing process. You set it when you really need it and when you have that big why, I suppose.
Yes, I love that you just said that, because I think that's really key to a lot of people that are extremely successful is that they actually don't bite off more than they can chew. Right. So instead of setting 10 goals, they would write down, here's an idea of all the goals I'd want to set in the coming season or year, but I'm going to take one at a time and work it. Right. And I think that's kind of how I set my goals without even realizing it. But now that you said it, I will map out sort of all the things I want to work on or all the goals, but I don't take on all of them at once. Right. Because that can be overwhelming for anyone.
Right. Okay. So that was the S, right?
So that's yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the T would be to establish time frames for these goals. So is this something that you can achieve in a day, a week, a year? And be realistic about that, which is the R. We'll get there in a second. But the time frames, the time frame is really important. So, when is your deadline to achieve this goal? The A would be to do an analysis of the resources involved to reach your goals. And that's where you're going to look at your environment, your accountability, your support, and everything around you. The R is the reality check. So, oftentimes, people will reach too big, and I don't mind them reaching for the stars. And what is that phrase? Like reach for the moon and land on the stars. Yeah. But we have to be careful that there's a reality check there that you can actually achieve these goals. And then T is to block out time on your actual calendar. Right. And to me, that is the most important step out of the START process, because I see a lot of people that will say, like, here's a sense of what I want to work on. Here's the time frame of how long it will take. And here's my analysis of my environment and how to get this done. And it is realistic, but then they don't calendar it in and it never gets done.
Right. Well, we're going to get a little bit more into that tactical in a moment, but I want to go back to this idea of, is it realistic? Do you recommend people taking your goals and sharing them with other people and say, hey, what do you think? Is this something that you think I can achieve? Or how do you judge whether something is realistic or not?
That's a great question. I do think that sometimes a reality check does mean that you do need to check in with someone else and say, hey, have you ever tried to achieve this goal before? But doing some great objective empirical research. So what does it take to achieve this goal? Go online, talk to some friends, go into a support group and find out how many people have achieved this goal before, how realistic it is. Is it? Talk to an expert in the field if you're thinking of doing something. So that's kind of the reality check. Like I have a client right now that's thinking of going back to get a PhD. And what I said to her is, I have no doubt that you can actually do the PhD. I want you to check and see with that PhD if you could then get a job when you get out.
Right.
So the reality check there isn't so much checking in with herself to say, can I do the work? It's, will I have a job when I'm done? So her reality check is she's doing informational interviews with career services offices and checking in and saying, what's the job market look like with if I hold this degree?
Right. Great. Well, that's a very good strategic overview. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to break things down a little bit more. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of actually how we not only set the goals, but how we're going to achieve and measure our achievement. So we're with Lisa Montanaro from lisamontanaro.com talking about goal-setting strategies, and we'll be right back. When you've got it together, everyone can tell. Your confidence is obvious. Introducing Viewables.com from Smead. Use the Viewables labeling system to transform your drawer of hanging files into a tidy, organized filing system. Using the premium hanging folder tabs, see the label from the front, top, and back. It's easy. Access Viewables.com from any computer, tablet, or internet-enabled smartphone. Let's make some labels. It's free, and there's nothing to download or install. Choose the label type and format your label just the way you want. You can even add index characters or icons for distinctive filing. Set up a free Viewables cloud account, and your secure login lets you save your projects for convenient access from any computer. And with Viewables multi-purpose labels, you can use one label for any type of file, including hanging folders, top tab folders, super tab folders, or oversized items like notebooks and file boxes. Upload a list of file headings and print your complete set of labels in moments. There's even a library of templates for commonly used label sets. It's never been easier to set up neat-looking files that have easy-to-read headings and efficient color codes. Obviously organized. Viewables.com. From Smead, keeping you organized. We are back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about goal-setting strategies, those things that we need to do in order to not only set the goal, but to achieve it. And Lisa, before the break, we kind of went through the START model. We've kind of got a nice strategic framework. We've got the why in place. We've kind of looked at, is it realistic? That last T of START, though, was the timing thing. And you talked about putting it into your calendar. Let's unpack that a little bit more. And so let's maybe take a goal and show how we take and unpack it and get it so it's in the calendar. Like, for example, you want to lose a certain amount of weight or stop smoking. Is that one entry in your calendar, or do you have to kind of decide in advance, what you want to do? I mean, I think you'd probably need an end date too, possibly.
Right.
Let's get into that.
Yeah. So you can use your calendar the old-fashioned way, or you can use a fancy app. It really doesn't matter, but come up with some type of tool to track it. So I'll give you an example. Client says, I want to get into better shape. So at first, where are you now? So where are you starting from? Like, are you exercising at all? And what's on your calendar now? No. So let's say, okay, they're going to start small. So we're not going to give them 5 days a week where they're going to go out and try every type of activity and pull their muscles and say, see, I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So we might add 1 or 2 days of activity, maybe 15 to 30 minutes. Maybe it's a walk around the block the first week. Maybe it's doing some sit-ups and push-ups at home, pushing a stroller, taking out their baby and going for a walk. And then we'll build on that, John. So that's just one example. So maybe the second week it's 2 days, maybe the third week it's 3 days. And maybe we work them up to 3 to 5 days a week of exercise, and they'll achieve their goal of exercising and losing the weight. At the same time, we'd want to look at their nutrition. So, depending on the goal, there could be layers.
Right.
And the idea of the calendar is that they need to set up their life for this to happen. So what I would do is say, do you have time on your calendar right now? And if not, what can we remove to replace it with this goal strategy? Right. Because the only way you're going to achieve it is if we put it on there. So with the smoking, are you going to go to a program, a support group, see a doctor? Are you getting a patch? That one probably is, to be honest, less about time and way more about behavior.
Right.
So what do you need to do? Or do you have certain times of the day when you used to go out and take a smoking break? What are you going to replace that with? So on the calendar, it might say, go for a coffee break, meet a friend, chew gum, get on the
Right.
phone. Yeah,
Right.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that also brings up the point about, the different kinds of goals. You have those that are very quantitative, which you can measure your success by, I lost 5 pounds or whatever. But
Correct.
then there's kind of like uh, the qualitative, or the broader goals that, I want to feel better.
Right.
How do you suggest taking a goal like I want to feel better and making it into something that's attainable? Because I think that's a trap people fall into, or even I want to lose weight.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, that would be nice. What does that mean?
Right. Well, first, I would ask them, how much weight do you want to lose? In what time period? And is that realistic?
Okay.
So, if I want to lose 50 pounds in a week, not realistic. 50 pounds in a year, realistic. But to lose a pound a week over a year, that needs to become almost a part time job for you.
Right.
So, what type of commitment level do you have? So, I would go back to, and I love how you said they're quantitative and qualitative. Usually, every quantitative goal has a qualitative reason behind it.
Oh,
And
okay.
every qualitative goal should have something quantitative to measure, like a metric or a milestone. Otherwise, like you said, how do we measure? You can measure, I feel better, but why? What are you doing to feel better? So we really do need to break it down. I would ask the client and peel back the layers of that onion. What do you mean by feel better? Do you mean that you need more energy? So are we looking at more sleep? Well, that's a pretty good goal. And we could make that quantitative. How many hours of sleep are you getting now? What do we want to change it to? Or does feel better mean psychologically? So should we get some exercise in there to get your endorphins going? So I would probably not let a client slide with just saying something that's qualitative. I would turn it into something quantitative.
Right. What about, you mentioned apps before. Are there some goal setting apps that you like to
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah, there's a cool one, and I just want to make sure I'm spelling it the right way. It's stick.com, STICKK.
Okay.
And it's really neat because it allows you to set up a commitment contract. And you would say, I want to do these things by this date. And if I don't, you actually put some money, you have some skin in the game,
Mm.
and you choose a charity of your choice, and the money would go towards that charity if you don't achieve the goal. If you want something that's even a little more motivating, sometimes people choose a group they don't want to fund because they
Oh.
don't want the money to go there, which is interesting. And it's legally binding. So that can scare some people a little bit, that one. But it's pretty neat. Another idea is to choose a support group. So is there a Facebook group? Like, let's say you're doing something like Overeaters Anonymous. Is there a Facebook group? Or let's say your goal is to do something in your business, like launch your website.
Right.
Give that a defined amount of time, work with a webmaster, work with a business coach, but also go into a business group and say, hey, everyone, on this date, I'm going to launch my website.
Right.
And check in with them. So some type of accountability.
Yeah.
Another cool app is there's lots of apps for getting in shape and losing weight. So like there are apps like runkeeper.com, which can track your walking and your running. Loseit.com is a great app to help you follow your nutrition levels and lose some weight if you want to. So they're out there. There's an app for almost every type of goal out there now.
Right. Well, and you can have all the toys in the world, but I think you touched on this accountability. Let's talk about that for a moment. How important is accountability in all this?
It's so important. And I think that if you're thinking of doing a personal goal, I would recommend to have a little family, like a communication conversation, and sit down and say, I'm going to be working on this goal. Here's what I need from everyone. And decide on what type of accountability do you want. So do you want your accountability to be disciplinary? Like, hey, you didn't do this, mom, or do you want it to be more of a cheerleader, or do you want a pat on the back? So I would actually not just not just decide who you want to be accountable to, but how you want that accountability to play out, which I think is really important. Sometimes it could be one person. You could just come up with a goal buddy and say, let's both set a goal and let's check in with each other weekly, daily. How do we check in with each other? If the other person hasn't achieved their goal that week, what do you want me to do about it?
Right.
So it's not just accountability, it's being really specific on who you'll be accountable to, how you'll be accountable to them, and what reaction you want them to have.
Now, have you ever worked with clients or because you're formerly a lawyer, right? I mean, do you ever have people write things down and sign it and put a commitment on it like that?
Absolutely. And people say like, oh, come on, it's just a piece of paper. I don't remember right now what the statistic is, but there's a large percentage of people that when they write down their goals are more likely to achieve them
Right.
than people that do not write them down. So I do think that's key. And if you write them down for yourself, it's powerful enough. If you write them down with someone else or make them public, it's even more powerful, which is pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the goals written down. We've got the accountability in place. How about reviewing or actually achieving the goal? Let's either get close or to the finish line.
Yeah. So I use a phrase like, how do you measure progress?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to actually look back and measure your progress. And that can be a huge motivator for people when they're trying to achieve a goal. So how am I doing? How far am I, like you said? So define some type of milestones along the way, and then come up with some reward system. So does positive reinforcement work for you, where you would actually come up with a reward? Like, when I get to this level, I'll allow myself to do something, whatever that is, to celebrate that success, however small. So I would come up with some milestones along the way and then give yourself a reward system. Some people work well with a negative reinforcement, and some people work well with positive. So the difference is, positive reinforcement would be, if I get to this point, I reward myself with X. Negative reinforcement is, I won't allow myself to do X or have X until I get to this point. So it's just a slight variation.
Right.
And it's good for people to know which works better for them.
Right. All right. Have we covered all the different goal setting types here? Because we're almost out of time. I want to make sure we've kind of covered the whole spectrum.
There's just one extra thing I want to add in. It's actually, it sounds counterintuitive, but it's called to set an anti-goal. So sometimes a goal could be to not do something anymore. So to actually pull something off your plate as opposed to trying to put something on it. So think about, going through your to-do list or, your tasks and responsibilities and pulling something off. So sometimes that's the goal. The goal could be, I'm not going to do this anymore. And you still have to do the same thing. Change your environment to make sure that happens, that you don't do this thing anymore. And it can be just as powerful as actually adding something to your plate. And then the only other thing I say is to say no to negativity. When you're doing a goal setting process, you need to stay positive and you need to surround yourself with positivity. So, some people can say like, well, I have to move the cookies out of the house and, silly things like that, or not silly, because that could be really important. But whatever it is, it could be a professional goal. And you have that one person in your life that's a naysayer, like, oh, John, come on, you're not going to do that. And you're like, you know what, Susan, right now, I just need you to not talk like that. I need to say yes to positivity and, tell the negative Nellies and the negative Neds that right now, you don't want to hear it. So just try to surround yourself with positive people.
All right. Well, on a positive note, then, let's end by you telling us what kinds of services you offer and how people can reach you.
Sure. Thank you. So lisamontanero.com is my website. And I basically help people achieve and work through personal and professional growth and milestones and goals. So I do career coaching, business coaching, and life coaching for my clients. And then I work with a lot of organizations, as you know. I've got some cool programs coming up, so people can go over to the website. And if they go over to the page called LMG University, I've got some online programs that people can join that are really fun. And you've got a group of people that you take the program with, because it's a group coaching program. And that's a perfect example of goal setting with accountability. So yeah,
Great.
We'd love to hear from anyone that's watching and appreciate them watching. But more importantly, we want to know that you've achieved your goals. So
Awesome. Well, and I think maybe one of the goals will be have them to reach out to you as well. So we'll be excited to hear back from people as they set their goals and achieve them. And I'm sure we'll have you back on again, Lisa.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, there you go. You are all set. You've got your goals in place. Now go achieve them. And we'll see you next time on Keeping You Organized. Coming up next time on Keeping You Organized.
As a theoretical computer scientist, I study the mathematics of digital communication, and this book, in some sense, is about its impact on our life. But really, the real answer was I got into deep work because I was trying to be better at my job.